Rain fell hard over the city that night. Inside a hidden mansion behind tall iron gates, gunfire echoed through dark hallways. Men in black suits ran, shouting orders. Blood dripped on the marble floor. In the middle of the chaos, one man lay on the ground, Billionaire Reyes, the most feared Mafia boss in the country. Billionaire was known for his cold eyes and his iron control. Men trembled just hearing his name. But that night, he was not powerful. He was dying. "Get the doctor, now," shouted Marco, his right-hand man, pressing a cloth on Damien's chest wound. Blood soaked through instantly. Damien's face was pale. His breathing was slow and shallow. Within an hour, 3 private doctors arrived at the mansion. They examined him quickly, checking his pulse, his wounds, his blood pressure. Their faces turned serious. One doctor stepped back and shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "The bullet is too close to his heart. If we operate, he might not survive. If we don't, he still might not survive." Marco grabbed the doctor's collar. "You are the best surgeon in the country. You cannot just give up." "It's not about skill," the doctor said, his voice shaking. "It's about fear. Everyone knows who tried to kill him. If I save Mr. Reyes, his enemies will come after my family too. I have children, Marco." "I'm sorry." One by one, all 3 doctors refused to operate. They packed their bags quickly and left the mansion, afraid to even look back. The Reyes family stood in the hallway, helpless. Damien's mother cried silently. His younger sister held his hand, begging him to stay awake. "Someone help him," she whispered. "Please, someone." But no one came. Word spread through the underground world fast. The great Damien Reyes, feared by everyone, was lying in his bed, slowly losing his life, and not a single doctor in the city dared to touch him. Some rival families even celebrated quietly, waiting for news of his death. Meanwhile, far from that world of guns and blood, a young woman named Elena Cruz walked into the mansion through the staff entrance. She had no idea about any of this. She was simply a maid, hired that same evening through an agency, told only that a wealthy family needed extra help because of a family emergency. Elena was 24 years old. She was not rich. She was not famous. She grew up poor, lost her parents at a young age, and worked hard jobs just to survive. She had a kind heart, strong hands, and a habit of never giving up, no matter how difficult things became. She needed this job badly. Her small apartment rent was due, and her little brother's school fees were waiting. When she walked inside, the mansion felt strange. The air was heavy. Some staff members were crying softly in corners. Others whispered urgently on phones. No one explained anything to her. An older housekeeper simply pointed toward a hallway. "Clean upstairs," the housekeeper said quickly. "And whatever you hear tonight, forget it. Do you understand?" Elena nodded, though she didn't understand at all. She walked up the grand staircase, carrying a cleaning cart, confused by the tension around her. As she reached the top floor, she heard a soft groan coming from a large room at the end of the hall. The door was slightly open. Curious and a little worried, she peeked inside. What she saw made her drop the cloth in her hand. A man was lying on a large bed, his chest wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. His face was pale, almost gray. His breathing was weak, coming in short, painful gasps. No nurse was in the room, no doctor, just him, alone, fighting to stay alive. Elena's heart pounded. Every instinct told her to walk away, to pretend she saw nothing, just like the housekeeper had warned. This was clearly not her business. She was only a maid, but something inside her would not let her legs move away. She stepped closer, slowly, and saw the wound was not properly cleaned. Dirt and old blood surrounded the bandage. If left like this, infection would kill him even faster than the bullet. Without thinking twice, Elena set down her cart, grabbed clean towels from it, and rushed toward the bed. Sir, can you hear me?" she said softly. Damien's eyes opened slightly, barely conscious. He saw a stranger's face above him, worried, unfamiliar, nothing like the fearful staff who usually surrounded him. "Who? Are you?" he whispered weakly. "I'm just the new maid," Elena answered, already working to clean his wound with careful hands. "But right now, that doesn't matter. You need help, and I'm not leaving you like this." Damien tried to speak again, but his eyes closed. His body went still. Elena's hands froze. Her heart dropped. Sir, wake up," she cried, shaking his shoulder gently. "Someone help me. He's not breathing right." Footsteps rushed toward the room. Marco burst through the door, eyes wide with shock at the sight of a stranger beside his boss. "Who let you in here?" he shouted. But before Elena could answer, Damien's body suddenly jerked, and a monitor beside the bed let out a sharp, continuous beep. The room went silent with fear. The sharp beeping sound filled the room. Marco's face went white. He grabbed the small monitor clipped to Damien's finger, his hands shaking. "What did you do?" he shouted at Elena, grabbing her arm roughly. "Nothing. I was just cleaning his wound," Elena said, her voice trembling but firm. "Look, his bandage was dirty. It could cause infection. I was trying to help him." Marco looked down at Damien's chest. The old bandage was gone, replaced with a clean cloth Elena had already wrapped carefully. The bleeding had actually slowed down. He let go of her arm, confused. At that moment, Damien's mother rushed in, followed by his younger sister, Isabel. Seeing the strange young woman beside her son's bed, the older woman's eyes filled with anger and fear. "Get her out of here," she said sharply. "We don't know who sent her. She could be one of them." "Wait," Isabel said, stepping closer and looking at the fresh, clean bandage. She actually helped him. "Look at his wound. It's better than before." The room fell into tense silence. Marco checked Damien's pulse again. It was weak, but steady. The beeping slowed down to a normal rhythm. Everyone let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. "She stays," Marco finally said, looking at Damien's mother. "For now. We have no doctor. We have no choice." Elena stood frozen, her heart still racing. She didn't understand any of this. Why was a simple wound such a big secret? Why did everyone look at her like she was dangerous? But she had no time to ask questions. The man in front of her was still fighting for his life, and something inside her refused to let him lose that fight. Over the next 3 days, Elena barely slept, while the rest of the household whispered fearfully in the hallways, refusing to enter Damien's room. Elena stayed close. She changed his bandages every few hours. She made simple herbal soups her grandmother once taught her, and slowly fed him small spoonfuls when he was too weak to eat on his own. She wiped his forehead with cool cloths when fever came at night. The staff watched her with confusion. No one understood why a simple maid would risk so much for a man everyone else was too afraid to touch. "You should leave while you still can," an older maid warned her one evening in the kitchen. "This family is not normal, Elena. The men who shot him will come back. If they find out you're helping him survive, they won't just kill him. They'll kill you too." Elena's hands paused over the soup pot. Fear crept into her chest, cold and heavy. She thought about her little brother waiting for her at home, depending on her. But then she thought about the man upstairs, alone, struggling to breathe, with no one else willing to help him. "I can't just leave him like that," she said quietly. "Even if he's dangerous, even if I don't understand any of this, he's still a human being fighting to live." The older maid shook her head, unable to understand such courage, and walked away. On the 4th night, Damien finally opened his eyes fully for the first time. The room was dim, lit only by a small lamp near the window. His body still felt heavy, but the pain in his chest was less sharp than before. He turned his head slowly and saw a figure sitting in a chair beside his bed, half asleep, her head resting on her arms near the edge of the mattress. It was her. The maid. Confusion filled his mind. Days had passed, he could feel it in his weakened muscles, yet she was still here, still by his side, when even his own men had been too scared to stay close. "You single quotes re. Still here," he said, his voice hoarse and low. Elena woke with a start, sitting up quickly. "Sir, you're awake." Relief washed over her face. She reached for a glass of water on the table and helped him take a small sip. Damien studied her carefully, his sharp eyes taking in every detail despite his weakness. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, her simple maid uniform slightly wrinkled from days of little rest. Yet she smiled gently at him, genuine relief in her expression, not fear, not greed, not the careful politeness his usual staff always showed him. "Why?" he asked simply. Elena tilted her head, confused. "Why what, sir?" "Why didn't you run?" Damien said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone else did. My own men are too afraid to enter this room. Yet you, a stranger, a maid never even properly hired myself. You stayed." Elena was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer honestly. "I don't know exactly who you are, sir. I don't understand this world you live in, or why everyone is so afraid. All I saw was a man who was dying, with no one willing to help him. I couldn't just walk away from that. It didn't feel right. Damien's eyes studied her face for a long moment, searching for any hint of a lie, any trace of hidden motive. He found none. Only tired honesty. For the first time in years, Damien Reyes, the man feared by criminals, the man whose name alone made grown men shake, felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not suspicion, not calculation. Something closer to gratitude. But before he could say another word, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, followed by shouting voices and the sound of running footsteps. Someone had entered the mansion. Part 3. Secrets in the Mansion 1000 words. The crash downstairs echoed through the whole mansion. Elena jumped to her feet, her heart pounding. Damien tried to sit up, gritting his teeth in pain. "Stay down," Elena said quickly, gently pushing his shoulder back onto the pillow. "You're too weak to move. Something is wrong," Damien said, his voice strained but alert despite his weak body. Years of danger had trained his instincts well, even in his condition. "Lock the door." Elena rushed to the door and turned the lock just as Marco's voice shouted from somewhere below, followed by more crashing sounds, like furniture being thrown. Gunfire cracked once, twice, then silence. Minutes passed like hours. Elena stood by the door, gripping a heavy lamp from the side table as her only weapon, ready to protect the man on the bed even though she had no real training, no real experience with danger like this. Her hands shook, but she did not move away from the door. Finally, footsteps approached, and Marco's voice called out, "It's me, open up." Elena unlocked the door carefully. Marco walked in, breathing heavily, a small cut on his forehead. "What happened?" Damien asked immediately. "An intruder," Marco said grimly. "He got past the front gate somehow. We caught him before he made it upstairs, but double quotes." He paused, looking troubled. "But what?" Damien pressed. "He knew things he shouldn't have known," Marco said quietly. "He knew exactly which hallway led to your room. He knew the guard shift schedule. Someone inside this house is giving information to your enemies." The room went cold with tension. Damien's eyes narrowed, sharp despite his weakness. "Find out who." Marco nodded and left quickly to deal with the situation, leaving Damien and Elena alone once again. Elena stood quietly, processing what she just heard. A spy inside the house, someone close to Damien, someone trusted, was secretly working against him. She suddenly understood why everyone in this mansion walked around with careful, guarded expressions. Trust here was a rare and dangerous thing. Over the next few days, the mansion grew tense. Extra guards were placed at every door. Staff members were questioned one by one in a private room downstairs. Elena noticed people watching each other with suspicion in the hallways, whispers stopping the moment someone else walked by. Despite the chaos around her, Elena continued caring for Damien. His wound was healing slowly but steadily, thanks to her constant attention. Color was returning to his face. He could now sit up on his own, and occasionally he even managed short, weak walks around his room with Elena's support. During these quiet moments together, Damien began asking her questions, small, careful questions about her life, testing her honesty without revealing too much of his own world. Elena answered simply, telling him about her small apartment, her part-time jobs before this one, her little brother Tomas who she was raising alone since their parents passed away years ago. "You've had a hard life," Damien said one evening, watching her carefully fold fresh bandages. "Many people have harder lives than mine." Elena replied simply, not looking for sympathy. "I just do what I have to do." Damien found himself drawn to her simple honesty, so different from the calculated words of everyone else around him, people who always wanted something from him, always hiding true intentions behind polite smiles. One evening, while bringing fresh water to Damien's room, Elena passed by a partially open door near the study downstairs. She wasn't trying to listen, but a familiar voice caught her attention, the housekeeper who had first welcomed her. The same woman who warned everyone to stay quiet about the family's business. Double quotes. If he finds out I gave them the schedule, he'll kill me, the housekeeper was saying nervously to someone on the phone. But they promised money. Enough money to finally leave this cursed job. Just a little more information, that's all they need. Elena's blood ran cold. She stood frozen outside the door, holding the tray tightly, afraid to even breathe too loudly. The housekeeper was the spy. Slowly, carefully, Elena backed away from the door and rushed quietly back upstairs, her mind racing. Should she tell Damien immediately? What if the housekeeper noticed her missing water tray and grew suspicious? What if telling Damien put her own life in even more danger? But she also remembered her own words to herself days ago. She couldn't just walk away when something wasn't right. She reached Damien's room, closing the door behind her firmly. Damien noticed her pale face immediately. "What happened?" he asked, sitting up straighter despite the pain. Elena hesitated only a moment before speaking. "I think I know who the spy is." Damien's eyes sharpened instantly, all weakness disappearing from his expression, replaced by the cold, calculating look of the Mafia boss he truly was. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. Elena explained what she overheard, her voice trembling slightly but clear. Damien listened carefully, his jaw tightening with every word. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment, processing the betrayal from someone who had worked in his household for years. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice quiet but sincere. "You didn't have to tell me this. You could have stayed silent and safe. I couldn't stay silent knowing you were still in danger." Elena replied honestly. Damien studied her face carefully, once again finding no hidden motive, only genuine concern. Something warm stirred inside his chest again, stronger this time, but their quiet moment was interrupted when Marco burst through the door, his face grim with urgent news. "Sir," Marco said seriously, "we found something. Elena's background. It's connected to us. Connected to our past." Elena's heart stopped. "Connected? To what past?" Damien's eyes turned toward her sharply, confusion and suspicion suddenly clouding his features once again. Elena's heart pounded so hard she thought Damien might hear it. "Connected? What do you mean, connected?" she asked, her voice shaking. Marco stepped forward, holding a small folder in his hand. His face was serious, unreadable. "I ran a background check on everyone in this house after the intruder incident. Standard procedure. But when I looked into Elena Cruz's file, I found something strange." He opened the folder and placed it on the table beside Damien's bed. Damien picked it up slowly, his eyes scanning the papers inside. Elena stood frozen, unsure of what was about to be revealed about her own life. "Your parents," Damien said quietly, looking up at her. "Their names were Ricardo and Sofia Cruz." Elena nodded slowly, confused. "Yes. Why?" Damien's expression grew distant, as if pulled back into a memory from long ago. "Ricardo Cruz worked for the Alvarez family 15 years ago." Elena's breath caught in her throat. The Alvarez family. She had heard that name before, whispered quietly by her mother when she was young, always followed by tears. "My father never talked about his work," Elena said slowly. "He just said he worked security for a business. Then one day, he and my mother were gone. The police said it was a car accident. I was 9 years old." Marco and Damien exchanged a heavy look. "It wasn't an accident," Marco said gently, his voice unusually soft for a man normally so hardened. "The Alvarez family was at war with another organization back then. Your father was caught in the middle, trying to protect information that could have ended the conflict peacefully. He was killed. Your mother too, because she knew what he knew." Elena's legs felt weak. She reached for the back of a chair to steady herself. Everything she thought she knew about her parents' death was a lie she had carried her whole life. "Which organization?" Elena whispered, though part of her already feared the answer. Damien looked at her steadily, his voice quiet but firm. "Mine. My father's organization, before I took over." The room went silent. Elena stared at Damien, a storm of emotions crossing her face: shock, confusion, betrayal, and something else, something more complicated. The man she had cared for so gently over the past week, the man whose life she had fought so hard to save, was connected to the tragedy that stole her parents from her. "I didn't know," Damien said quietly, watching her carefully. "I was young myself back then. My father made many decisions I never agreed with. If I had known your father died protecting something meant to bring peace, I would have double quotes." He paused, searching for the right words. "I would have made sure your family was taken care of." Elena's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "It doesn't change what happened," she said softly, "but I believe you didn't know." Marco shifted uncomfortably, clearly unprepared for such an emotional conversation. "There's more," he added carefully. "The men who attacked Damien last week, we believe they're connected to the same conflict, resurfacing after all these years. Someone is trying to finish what started back then." Damien's face hardened with realization. "That's why the spy was giving them information. This isn't just a random attack. Someone wants revenge, or wants to finish old business permanently." Elena took a deep breath, steadying herself despite the storm inside her. Yes, her past was tangled painfully with Damien's world. Yes, the truth hurt more than she expected. But looking at him now, weak from his wounds yet still fighting to protect his people. She saw not the man who destroyed her family, but a man trying to fix a broken, dangerous world he inherited. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now, we find out exactly who is behind this, Damien said firmly. And we make sure nothing happens to you. Before anyone could respond further, loud footsteps rushed toward the room. A guard burst in, breathless and alarmed. Sir, the housekeeper. She's gone. She left through the back gate an hour ago and hasn't returned. And he hesitated, glancing nervously at Elena. And what? Marco demanded. Elena's brother, the guard said quickly. Someone went to her apartment. Her neighbor said two men took him. They said if Elena wants to see him again, she needs to come alone, tonight, to the old warehouse by the docks. Elena's whole body went cold. Tomas, she whispered, her hands trembling violently. They took Tomas. Damien tried to push himself up from the bed immediately, his wound screaming in protest. Get my weapons, he ordered Marco firmly, ignoring the pain evident on his face. Sir, you can barely stand, Marco argued. You'll open your wound again. You could die. I don't care, Damien said, his voice hard as steel, his eyes locking with Elena's frightened ones. She stayed by my side when every doctor gave up on me. When my own men were too afraid to enter this room. I will not sit here weak and useless while her brother's life is in danger. Elena stared at him, stunned by the fierce determination in his eyes. A determination that went far beyond simple duty or guilt. You'll get yourself killed, she said softly, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. I can't let you do that. You didn't leave me to die, Damien said, gripping the edge of the bed and forcing himself to stand despite the pain. I won't leave you to face this alone. Marco looked between them, understanding something deeper had grown between his boss and this brave young maid. With a resigned sigh, he moved to gather weapons and call the remaining loyal guards. Outside, the night grew darker, and somewhere across the city, in an abandoned warehouse by the docks, young Tomas sat tied to a chair, frightened and alone, waiting for a sister who would do anything to save him. The night was cold and heavy with fog as Damien's car pulled up near the old docks. Marco drove, his jaw tight with worrying, glancing constantly at Damien in the rearview mirror. Damien sat pale but determined, one hand pressed against his bandaged chest, the other gripping a pistol tightly. Beside him, Elena stared out the window at the dark warehouse ahead, her heart aching with fear for her brother. Remember the plan, Marco said quietly as he parked the car in the shadows. Elena walks in alone, like they asked. We move in from the back once we know Tomas is safe, and if something goes wrong. Elena asked, her voice trembling. Damien reached over and gently took her hand, his grip weak but full of quiet strength. Nothing will go wrong. I promise you. Elena looked into his eyes and, despite everything, despite the pain and danger surrounding them, she found comfort there. She nodded and stepped out of the car, walking slowly toward the warehouse entrance, her footsteps echoing in the empty night. Inside, dim lights flickered over stacks of old crates. Tomas sat tied to a chair in the center of the room, a bruise on his cheek, his eyes wide with fear when he saw his sister enter. Elena. He cried out. I'm here, Tomas, she said softly, stepping closer, though two armed men blocked her path. A man stepped forward from the shadows, older, with cold, calculating eyes. Elena Cruz, daughter of Ricardo Cruz, you've grown up well. Let my brother go, Elena said firmly, hiding her fear as best she could. You wanted me here. I'm here. The man smiled coldly. Actually, my dear, we wanted Damien Reyes. You're simply the bait that brought him out of hiding. Right on cue. Gunfire erupted from the back entrance as Marco and several loyal guards stormed in, catching the enemy men by surprise. Chaos broke out immediately, shouts and gunfire echoing through the warehouse. Elena rushed to Tomas, quickly untying the ropes around his wrists while bullets flew nearby. Stay low, she told him urgently, pulling him behind a stack of crates for safety. Meanwhile, Damien, despite Marco's warnings, entered through the front, his weakened body moving with fierce determination. His eyes locked onto the cold-eyed leader who had orchestrated everything. You should be resting in bed, dying quietly like everyone expected, the man sneered, raising his gun toward Damien, disappointed. Damien replied, his voice steady despite his weakened state. The man fired, but Damien moved just enough, the bullet grazing his arm instead of his chest. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Damien fired back, his aim still sharp despite everything his body had endured. The enemy leader fell, his gun clattering to the floor. The remaining enemy men, seeing their leader defeated, quickly surrendered or fled into the night as Marco's guards secured the warehouse. Elena rushed out from behind the crates with Tomas, her eyes searching frantically until she found Damien standing amid the chaos. Blood soaking through his shirt again, but alive. Damien, she cried, rushing toward him as his legs finally gave out from exhaustion and pain. She caught him before he fell completely, lowering him gently to the ground. Tomas. Is he safe? Damien asked weakly, even in this moment thinking of her brother's safety before his own. He's safe, Elena said, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her hands against his fresh wound. Because of you? You saved him. You saved us both. Marco rushed over, immediately calling for the mansion's private medical team, who this time, with the danger finally eliminated, arrived without fear or hesitation. Weeks passed. Damien recovered slowly in his mansion, his wounds finally healing properly under skilled medical care. The threat to his life and organization had been eliminated. The old conflict from his father's era finally resolved. Tomas stayed at the mansion too, safe and cared for, slowly adjusting to this strange new world his sister had become part of. One quiet evening, Damien found Elena sitting alone on the mansion's balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft orange and pink colors. May I join you? He asked, walking slowly but steadily now. Fully recovered, Elena smiled and nodded, making space beside her. They sat quietly for a moment, comfortable in each other's presence, before Damien finally spoke. Elena, from the moment you found me dying in that room, you changed everything. Not just my life, but who I am as a person. Every doctor gave up on me. My own men feared to stay by my side. But you never left, even when you learned the painful truth about my world's connection to your parents' deaths. Elena listened quietly, her heart full of emotions she had struggled to understand for weeks. I don't expect forgiveness for what my father's organization did to your family, Damien continued softly. But I promise you, for as long as I live, I will protect you and Tomas, and I will spend my life making up for that pain. If you'll let me. Elena turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of healing rather than sorrow. You already have, Damien. You risked your life for my brother without hesitation. You showed me who you truly are, not the man feared by the world, but a man capable of real, genuine goodness. Slowly, gently, Damien reached for her hand, and Elena did not pull away. Instead, she held his hand firmly, her simple maid's heart now intertwined completely with the powerful Mafia boss she had once been too afraid to even look at directly. As the sun set fully behind them, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Elena knew her life had changed forever, not because she became part of a powerful, dangerous world, but because she had found genuine love and loyalty in the most unexpected place, proving that even the coldest hearts could heal, given enough courage, kindness, and unwavering devotion. From that day forward, Elena was no longer known simply as the maid who wouldn't leave. She was known as the woman who saved Mafia boss Damien Reyes in every way that truly mattered.